All right, we are here. Leigh, you can come on video now as well. But I'm going to do a little bit of a preamble.
Okay.
Welcome everybody. We are here for the second of the Hornitos Blacklist Happy Hours as part of the Blacklist and Hornitos Take Your Shot film program, a first of its kind partnership as a continuation of Hornitos's Shot Fund, a multi-year investment program and platform dedicated to empowering creative entrepreneurs taking their shot at trailblazing ventures in their careers. What does that mean practically for the Blacklist? It means that we, along with Hornitos, are going to give away $15,000 to split up between 5 emerging filmmakers from underrepresented communities to make short films based on their extraordinary feature film scripts in the hopes that it will help them take their shot at the next stage in their careers. See what we did there? Opt-in for that is the deadline's August 31st. If you want to know more about what that means, go to the Blacklist website, blcklst.com, or just Google Hornitos and the Blacklist. It will get you there. I'm going to spare everybody the sort of deep dive into the Hornitos family story, except to say that they are known for breaking tradition, dating back to 1950 when its founder, Don Francisco, launched the brand in honor of Mexican Independence Day. We are not drinking today because it is early in the morning Los Angeles time, and I think we both have a busy day. I know I do. But we are lucky to be joined by Leigh Whannell, co-creator of the Saw franchise, director of Insidious 3 and Invisible Man. I also didn't know this, Leigh. Your first role as an actor in the movie Stygian, I'm just basing this on IMDb though, lists you as clown and punk kid, which I think is as sort of credits go, is one of the cooler combos I've seen on IMDb.
Stygian, yes. So that was James Wan's first film. He made that while he was at film school. I think James has personally buried every copy of Stygian somewhere near the Earth's molten core. He actually co-directed it. To be fair, he co-directed it with another student who went to the same film school that we all went to in Melbourne, whose name is Shannon Young. Shout out to Shannon if you happen to be watching this. It was one of those classic things where everyone at film school had to make a short film, but James was like, a short film? Why would I do that? I'm making a feature. And there's always one kid in every film school that's like, no,
there's always one for sure.
There's always one. And so James teamed up with Shannon and they made a feature film. I think it scraped in at around 80 minutes. So just feature length. It was called Stygian. And yeah, it was a very strange film. It was like if Sam Raimi directed a music video based on a David Lynch film about killer clowns. I don't even know how to pitch this film to you, but
that's a pretty compelling pitch. If there is a lingering copy of that somewhere not near the molten core, I feel like someone's going to go and track it down now.
James will kill me if any Stygian got out. I'll actually tell you the storyline. The storyline is that this couple is being chased by these bad guys. I can't remember why they're being chased. There's a big shootout. Everybody dies, the bad guys and the good guys, the couple. And then they wake up and realize they're all in hell or in some afterlife. And then
thus the title Stygian.
Stygian, correct. And they wake up from the shootout 10 minutes into the movie and the chase continues, except now they're in hell. So all the normal rules of the world and all the bad guys are suddenly appearing as monsters and killer clowns. And I think I played a clown who wielded an axe and then I'd forgotten about Punk Kid. Yeah. So there you go. That James, if you want to talk to him about his first short, you got to talk to him about his first feature.
There we go. That's actually that'll give me a good transition here. So obviously we're not here to talk about Stygian or Invisible Man or Insidious or any of the other things that you've done. We're here to talk about your first short. So tell us about your first short. Well, actually, let me back up even further. You're from Melbourne originally, right? It wasn't just film school.
Yes.
So you grew up in Melbourne. you went to film school. I'm guessing you made the short somewhere between sort of birth and arriving at film school. Like, where were you? Like, what made you decide you wanted to be a filmmaker? And then, like, get us to the point of making your first short in your story.
Okay. All right. So, as you said, I grew up in Melbourne, in the outer suburbs of Melbourne, very, very sort of boring suburbs of Melbourne. And my dad worked at a TV station. And so I had a little bit of exposure to the sort of behind the scenes of the media world as a kid. And one day, this will date me, my dad came home with this beta video machine about the size of a microwave oven. And his dad had won it in a golf tournament and didn't want it. It's like, what am I going to do with this? And so he brought it home and we went to the video store and I begged my dad to let me rent Jaws just based on the cover. He would not let me rent Jaws. I remember the first video we ever rented was Popeye, starring Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall.
I'm sort of fascinated that Jaws was not okay, but Popeye was.
Yeah, in retrospect, Popeye way creepier and nightmarish, right. Way more creepy. So, but that really kickstarted my movie obsession. And so all through my adolescence, and I was just, you know, known as the movie guy. But what made me want to become a filmmaker was having a teacher. When I was in year 10 at high school, I had this one teacher that I'm still friends with to this day who really explained movies in a way that it had never been explained to me before. You know, before that, I was just a fan and a passive viewer of movies, but he was that one teacher who said, like, well, let's talk about why Hitchcock did this. Why is he shooting it from above? He's trying to show that this character is more powerful. That's why we're looking down. He sort of broke down movies in a way that suddenly made me switch my interest from acting and doing school plays and things. All of a sudden, my interests went behind the camera, and I was way more interested in how you make films. So that was in about, like, I guess, I'm not sure what the American term, 10th grade. So like nearly at the end of high school.
Yeah, it's like, so yeah, I mean, for us, it's 10th grade is like sophomore year. So you have 2 more years after that. Before
yeah, exactly. That was it.
11,
and
12.
So, exactly. And so that was it. For the last 2 years of high school, I just started becoming obsessed with directors. And then that led me to applying to RMIT Film School in Melbourne. And I got in somehow. I remember at the interview, remember this, anyone who's watching. So I was 17 when I did the interview, and my particular film school was a very, how do I put this? I don't know how to put this other than it was a very artistically focused film school. They were not looking to churn out the next Spielberg. This was a school for people who wanted to be the next, you know, Andy Warhol or Richard Hell, or, you know, a very experimental. If you were looking to make a Razorhead, you're at the right film school.
Right. It's like if your movies are going to screen on walls in museums, you're in the right place.
Exactly. If you want to point a camera at a building for 12 hours and call it Journey of the Light and then project it onto the wall at MoMA, you should go to Media Arts at RMIT. So I was almost exactly the wrong person. And I remember during my interview, I'm standing there, there's like 5 film professors, adults, staring at me. I don't think my voice had broken yet. And one of them said, what sort of movies do you like? You know, and I said, I haven't told this story in years. I said, oh yeah, I like all types of movies. You know, The Crow, Pulp Fiction, and one of the teachers, the sort of punky one, you know, there's like four men and women that looked like your stereotypical film school types, and then this one punk guy, you know, with green hair, and like he was the outsider. And he looked at the others. He looked at the other professors when I said that, and was like, "I like all types of films, The Crow and Pulp Fiction," and kind of snickered, like, wow. like these kids, these suburban kids, they think that that's strange. And I was like, you know, pardon me for not having discovered, you know, Werner Herzog yet as a suburban teenager.
As a 17-year-old, look, this is very much my story too. It's like that they didn't have that at the local Blockbuster in West Central Georgia. Did you make a short to get into film school? Sorry, what was that, mate? Did you make a short in order to get into film school though?
Correct. I did. It was a school that wasn't really interested in what your grades were or your school, your test scoring was. It was really about your portfolio. And so I made a I made a short that was very angsty. It was called Static. Okay. And, if part of what we're doing right now, Franklin, is to empower younger filmmakers to just try stuff and not put the weight of the world on everything they shoot, I can tell you that I can't believe I got into film school based on this film, because I was just using whatever music I liked at the time. So I was using Soundgarden and, Alice in Chains and all this grungy, angsty stuff. I was just using that. And it was very much a product of my mind at the time. It was about a young man who works at a community radio station. So I guess the Los Angeles equivalent would be like KCRW, or maybe something even more. I guess the American equivalent would be like college radio.
Yeah.
It was about a guy working at a college radio station. It was about 10 minutes long. I shot it with a VHS camera. I used my friend who'd never acted before as the lead role so that I could concentrate on directing. And it was pretty bad. Not as bad as my student thesis film, though.
Yeah, so you've mentioned this in the past in some of our social conversations. So I want to hear about that one, though, because I think that is probably the most direct comparison that our audience is going to have to the experience of making something. Tell us about that film, starting with the title.
Okay, the title is The Demise of Fallon Thomas. Fallon Thomas was the name of the lead character. I don't know where I got this name from. I still think it's not a bad name, Fallon. I should have named one of my kids Fallon. It's about a punk band that kills the people that come and see their shows. So the lead singer of this band, the band was called Dump Truck. The lead singer, Fallon Thomas, was so aggressively antisocial that he liked to leap out into the crowd and attack the crowd. But the more he did that, this was the big irony, Franklin. These were the deep themes I was touching on.
The more he did it, the more people wanted to go to the show.
Franklin, have you seen the movie? You took the words right out of my mouth. You must have been there the day that I showed it. Exactly. The whole point of the movie is the more violent he gets, the more popular they get. And so the very thing that he hates, popularity, talk about 90s, the more popular the band gets, the more crazy he gets, until the ultimate scene in the film, which is that he finally is driven to murder and kills a bunch of people. and that becomes their final show. So that was the story of the movie, the storyline. The experience of making it and the finished product was something to behold, I can tell you.
Well, I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the experience of making it, because I think that this is one of the things that, look, I've never directed a film or a short, but I produced a few features now, but I produced some shorts before I produced the features. And I remember sort of like the week leading up to principal photography of the first short that I produced. And it was terrifying because I just had no idea actually what to expect. And I'm just curious if you could walk people through the experience of directing your first short, like what fears you had, what fears proved to be unfounded, and what were the known knowns, the known unknowns, and then the unknown unknowns that actually were the worst part.
Wow, it's a great question. I mean, I totally identify with what you were saying about the fear. I think that I wasn't, my biggest mistake that I made, I think, is that I wasn't properly organized. I didn't really have a proper producer. I was trying to do everything myself. So one of the biggest lessons I think I took away from that whole experience, and to this day, I think still resonates with me, is that you have to delegate. I think there are certain types of filmmakers who try to take everything on themselves, and there are people who really can do that. There are really talented people out there who can light and shoot. I mean, I was watching that Bo Burnham Netflix special that did that fantastic special Inside, which I loved. And I was just marveling at what an everyman he is when it comes to production, that you can tell that he's lighting it, he's shooting it. And I think in this age of everybody walking around with a pretty good quality camera in their pocket, it is possible to take on everything yourself. But for me, I find it's best to try to team up with people who are great at what they do. Like, why shoot the short yourself if you have a friend or someone close to you who has that talent? Because not only are you benefiting from their skill and their talent, but it's one more thing off your plate so that you can focus on the story. And for those people who are watching, who are thinking, well, I don't have that, I don't happen to be friends with a great cinematographer, I'm like, okay, great, you got to shoot it yourself. But as you go further along, I find that not trying to do every single job has been really freeing for me as a filmmaker. One of my favorite things about making features is assembling the team. I love that stage of pre-production where you're like choosing the people. It's like putting together a bank heist, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's Roy, a really, really strong analogy. I agree.
Exactly. You know, it's like, he's the safecracker. He's the best in the business. Then we got, Tracy. She's good with knives. If we have any trouble with security, she'll, then we got Roy, the dynamite guy. Like, you put together this bank heist. Every heist movie is like putting together the team. And like you said, that's what a movie is. And so I think on this short film, I tried to do too much, and I was way out of my depth. I mean, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I would turn up things. I was using non-actors. I chose a real band to play the band. So they weren't even actors. I thought it would be easier to have a band act in the roles than it would be to take a bunch of actors and try to teach them how to play guitar. So, and that turned out to be a bit of a nightmare because they were really unruly and didn't want to be there and didn't show up on time. And it was like a coming of age experience for me because I think I was so naive, and then I just had my eyes ripped open by this experience, of trying to wrangle people and dealing with people that didn't want to be there, and seeing drugs for the first time. One of the band members that I'll leave nameless was, we were shooting a scene. There's this really famous venue in Melbourne that's still open that I love called the Tote. And the Tote is kind of like the CBGBs of Melbourne. It's like a famous rock club. And so we're shooting there during the day with curtains over the windows to make it look like nighttime. And all of a sudden, one of the band members is missing. And we got to shoot. I'm like, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And because I was doing everything myself, I'm running madly around this pub looking for this missing band member. I found him in one of the toilet stalls shooting up heroin. It was, to my suburban eyes, I was like way out of my depth just dealing with that. And like, it kind of, I guess it's not a funny story given that someone had a heroin habit in the band, but then looking back, like I was exactly the wrong person to deal with that at that moment. I was like, I didn't even know what to say, So it was so many experiences all in one.
A question on the team building thing. How do you know when a creative partner is the right creative partner? Like, how do you know, okay, this is a person I want on my team versus this is a person that I don't?
It's a great question because I'm still asking myself that in a lot of ways. I think what's hard about interviewing people to be part of your team to make a film is that anybody can be nice for 45 minutes.
Right.
Nobody, once you're out on that set, that's when people reveal their true colors. And I have had the experience of meeting somebody who seems great. And then all of a sudden, a week into the shoot, you're like, oh God. So you sort of have to develop a sixth sense about who people are. And maybe I try to, if I'm interviewing somebody or talking to them about being part of a film that I'm working on, I try not to just focus all the questions on work, like, how would you shoot this, or what kind of equipment, are you using? I mean, I do that some of the time, but a lot of the time I'm trying to work out what kind of person they are. So I'm asking about their life, where did they grow up? Just trying to get a sense of who they are. And then also I just try to spell it out. Like I always say to somebody, it's important to me to run a harmonious set where everybody gets along, because making a film is stressful enough without the added stress of a toxic personality. And it's a little bit tricky because
no one's going to cop to being like, well, I'm a toxic personality. Sorry, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm out. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like when you go to the airport and those it's like, are you a terrorist? Are you currently a wanted criminal? Like, what person's going to be like, they got me. I got to pick yes. I'm wanted in 9 countries. Like, you're exactly right. Nobody's going to say that. But I still feel that even though you're right and nobody would say, yeah, frankly, I'm tough to get along with, I still feel like it's a worthy topic to broach, because it lets the person know from the very start that this is a priority of mine. It helps. I feel like it's important to plant the seed of what type of set you want. I went to a really informative talk at the WGA years ago, right before I directed my first short film. Feature. I was just as nervous as you were when you were producing a feature.
It's terrifying.
Terrified, and I think I've realized since that directors are masochists and they love to tell war stories. They never tell you about the good things that happen on film sets. So by the time I directed a film, all I'd ever heard is about all the things that go wrong and all the things that crush you and that beat you down. And so I was ready for warfare. And so I get this email in my inbox from the WGA one day saying, are you a writer that wants to direct? And I was like, why, yes, I am. And so I turn up to this seminar one Saturday morning at the Writers Guild in Los Angeles on Fairfax and 3rd. I had no idea what to expect on this rainy Saturday morning, but because it's Los Angeles, the people talking at the seminar were like Billy Ray and John Wells and Nicole Holofcener. They were all these filmmakers that I really idolize. And so I was taking so many notes, and the thing that I wrote down that really relates to what we're saying is that I remember Billy Ray said, cast your crew with the same rigor that you cast the actors. He's like, I don't understand why directors spend all this time agonizing over who's in their cast, and then when it comes to the crew, they're like, who's the key grip? No, yeah, fine. They just let someone else, like, he's like, you've got to cast every member of your crew. And I mean, I treated my notebook full of notes from this seminar was like my Bible on that film set. Oh. And so what I did is I approached every interview with a crew member like I was casting them in the movie as an actor. So I think
that's really phenomenal advice. Here's the flip of that. What part of being a director can you not delegate?
Yeah, I mean,
so you can have somebody else shoot it. You can have somebody else do the production design. I mean, presumably you can't have somebody work with the actors, but like, what are the sort of core elements of being a filmmaker that you feel like you shouldn't delegate, that make it still yours?
I think it's that knowledge of the story and the universe. Like, don't delegate story making decisions. Like, when you're talking about costume design or cinematography, there are certain things that you're going to let that person do and lead the charge on with their expertise. But I always want everything to go through me, no matter how small. Anything that goes on screen that contributes to the story, the color of someone's tie in a scene is going to affect the story in some micro way. And you know as well as I do that a movie is a series of thousands of little micro decisions that add up to something, and they all count. Whether we know it or not as viewers, the color of the Terminator's jacket, it goes into our eyes and registers in our brain, and all those decisions count. And so I think that's the part you should not delegate. Because I write my own scripts, I like to be the sort of chief architect of how that gets represented on screen. And so that probably is the most important thing, I think, not to delegate.
I think that's a great answer. And now I'm imagining like what the Terminator would have been like if the jacket had been like hot pink.
Exactly.
Like it's a very different movie.
Like, yeah, just replace the jacket he's wearing with like Michael Jackson's jacket from the Bad video or something like or the Thriller, the red.
Well, that's a version of that movie that I would like to see. In fact, I feel like the technology exists to swap those out, and that is like a secret Terminator screening I would like to attend, just out of pure curiosity, if nothing else. All right, so last question, we'll close it out. Like, what's one piece of advice that you give to a writer who's never directed a short before, who's going to direct their first short? Who's like somebody who's got a great script, who's a hell of a writer, who's about to go be on set and direct their first movie. What is the thing as a writer who's turned very successful director is the one piece of knowledge you'd like to pass back to yourself as a former writer?
I would say no, that it's, going back to what we were saying before about telling war stories, treat it like it's fun. Try to. Like filmmaking is stressful, the very nature of it, because you're racing against the clock. You're always racing the clock, as you know. Sometimes you're racing against the sun, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't count the number of times I've been standing there looking back at the sun breaking over the horizon, going, "Come on!" And then the cinematographer's like, "I'm taking it stops down. It's still dark," and I'm like, "Oh man," and it's such a stressful situation. So, but it's also a fun job. There's a reason we all wanted to be filmmakers. And if you're a writer who's written something, don't make the mistake of going in thinking that this is warfare, because you can actually create a fun environment for your crew. I think there's been a myth for a long time that directing is like being a general, overseeing an army. And that's how you get that stereotypical, the director with the cigar, and, the John Ford, screaming at everybody and the megaphone. And I think that's a really outdated thing. I think that now, with the democratization of filmmaking tools, we've seen that it's really a collaboration, and the general director, it's really about getting the best out of people. So I would encourage any writer who's about to make something to try to include everybody and say, "I've written this, but right now it's just the plans for a house. Who wants to help me build the house?" And then celebrate that person's talent. If somebody does something great in your film, if you've written a scene and the cinematographer just made that scene better by shooting it beautifully, don't make the mistake of not walking up to that person and saying, "Thank you so much." You don't have to be a general. You don't have to keep people in line. I think you have to lift people up. And it's hard to do when the sun is going down and you're stressed out. It's hard to remember that. It's easier to yell. It's easier to say, "Come on." It's hard to say, "Hey guys, I so want this shot." Just try to keep that positive attitude. It's probably the hardest thing about directing.
That, my friend, is a perfect place to end. Leigh, thank you so much. And thanks again to Hornitos. But thank you so much, but particularly for that thought at this time. I could not agree more. And yeah, I hope everybody takes that on board, because we'll all be better off for it. We'll have better movies, and everybody that's making movies will have a better experience doing it. So thank you all, and we will see you soon.